What is up, my Neppers? This is the NepQueen, and today I'd like to welcome you all to the first episode of my planned side series that I like to call Grinding 101, where I teach all of you players out there the easiest way to get good in Neptunia. As I said before in my guide video, you have to grind a lot, and I mean a lot in this game. It's because some of the bosses can be pretty threatening and even at times unfair with the level jumps. But never fear, that's what I'm here for. Now, I'm sure you guys noticed in my last episode of Birth1 that I was able to grind quite a bit before facing those two bosses, and I bet you would all like to know my secret of where to go to get all that good EXP in such a short time. Well, let's find out, shall we? In this first episode, I'm going to be showing you all where to grind to get from level 10 to level 20. Let's get started! So, in order to get this good EXP, you need to grind in a dungeon that you build through a plan, not any of the ones that you unlock in the actual game. The first dungeon that you can unlock via a plan is the Zekka Ruins #1 dungeon. In order to make this dungeon, you need to clear Chapter 1 of the game first. You receive this plan from the Spelunker Chirper that you speak to after you finish the quest in the Monster Cave, so be on the lookout for him and get that plan. Usually the plans for building dungeons have the recipe of materials from a dungeon that you find it in, but for the first dungeon, all you need to get is 2 Doguman jellies, which you can find in the Virtua Forest. After you build the plan, you can head over to the Zekka Ruins. The only enemies in this dungeon are these little weird bunny things called Shampurus. Now be warned that this dungeon also has a risky boss wandering, and the scary part is it looks exactly the same as the grunt enemies, so make sure to look at the map so you don't accidentally face it. Also, don't even waste your time facing it because it only gives 100 EXP, which is a major troll move, so don't even waste your time. Now, this is an ideal place to grind from level 7 to level 12 or so. The Shampurus give around 70 to 190 EXP total, which is pretty good for a start to grinding. There are 3 kinds of Shampurus: the normal, the magical, and the buff. Each one gives different EXP separately, so the number of EXP you get isn't always the same, as the spawns are completely random when you face an enemy. But the good thing about this dungeon is that it's not risky because none of the enemies in this dungeon go viral. So this is a really good place to start to grind for a while, at least enough to learn the good skills. If you want to try going somewhere else to grind if EXP is getting too low for you here, you can go over to this specific part of the Zekka dungeon and grab this item from the 2 shown here, which is another plan for another new dungeon. The good news is, if you've been grinding in this dungeon for a while, you'll probably already have the materials you need to make it, which is the 3 Shampuru ears. So I'm sure you've got the stuff that you need. Build the plan and the dungeon will be formed. This new dungeon is called the Metro Factory, located on the lower left of Planetoon. This is definitely a step up from the Zekka Ruins with the enemies here, so just to be safe, I recommend that you don't come to this dungeon unless your party is at least over level 14 or 15. So this dungeon is a little riskier to take on because 2 of the enemies in it can go viral, these being the Child Wolf and the Heavy Dragon. I also recommend that you build a plan to weaken enemies and use it there because the enemies can hit pretty hard if you're not careful. So if you're just entering for the first time, I highly recommend that you activate this plan. To build the plan, you need 3 mysterious glowing objects, which can be dropped from the per 4 enemies of the West Wind Valley, the first dungeon that you enter in Chapter 2. Anyway, back to the Metro Factory. The enemy here that gives the most experience is the Child Wolf, the greatest being a little over 300 EXP, depending on how many wolves you fight per encounter, which is a pretty major jump. But since these things can go viral if you're not careful, proceed with the utmost caution when facing them. This is why I say to be level 15 or over, because at level 12, Compa can learn a very useful healing skill, which is Compa's first aid kit, and it can heal everyone in the party within a range, so this will be very helpful if you end up cornered while grinding. So be careful when facing them. If you also want to be a little adventurous, the risky enemy in this dungeon, being the Needhog, gives around 855 EXP. That is a lot, but keep in mind that these risky enemies are mostly for players who are in a decent level range, know what they're doing, or enjoy a challenge. So if you want to take on this beast, I highly suggest you save before you do in case it defeats you. Honestly, these are the 2 dungeons that I recommend the most when grinding at this point in the game. There are other items in all of these dungeons that are plans to make new dungeons, but in my opinion, the Metro Factory's EXP is probably the best you're going to get here for now. But feel free to look around if you want to build more of the dungeons and explore and see what enemies you can find. But if you keep grinding here and there, you'll be able to reach a level in order to take on those bad bosses. Level 15/20 is a good place to fight the first boss of Chapter 2, but feel free to go as much as you want if you feel like you're on a roll or feel nervous about it. So that's about all the advice I have to give on this episode. Keep in mind though that this is still grinding, so you may be at it for a few hours even still. I usually mute the game and listen to my favorite music or playlist while I do it. It helps the time go by faster. And also, be sure to give your girls the bracelet armor, good weapons, and I cannot stress this enough, but make sure to save often. I say every single time that you level up. There's nothing worse than losing all of your progress and work because you ended up getting unlucky in a fight that catches you off guard. Much like the fight I got my first game over in episode 3, you know. So make sure you save and not lose any of your hard work, because that's one of the biggest rage quitting scenarios ever. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed or learned something from this video, and I hope I was able to give you a good way to help your girls get good before you fight on the big baddies. So please feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below, and of course, consider liking and subbing if you enjoyed what you saw. This has been Grinding 101 with your host, NepQueen, now signing off. Until next time, bye-bye!